Are we ready now? Yep. Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's meeting of Overview and Scrutiny. We're going to start with apologies for absence. Emma.
Thanks, Chair. So we have apologies from Councillor Michael Boyle, Councillor Andrew Duncan and Councillor Mike Hope. But we have substitutes from Councillor Duncan, which is Councillor Elwood, and from Mike Hope, which is Councillor Pat Bosworth.
Okay, and just to know that Jim Creamer is running late. He may make it and he may not. So, okay. So now we'll move on to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of November. I think it was quite a lengthy meeting. So has anybody got anything to say about the minutes they want to raise here? No? We all happy? Do you want... Please, all those in favour? Any against? Abstentions? We've got our substitute people over there. That's fine. Lovely. Okay, so now we'll move on to, are there any declarations of interest today? If anything we're going to be talking about? No. Okay, lovely. So we're going to move straight on to the partnership review. Today we've got Donna and Simon with us from the Citizens Advice Nottingham District. So I'll just hand over to them. Welcome to the meeting.
Oh, good evening, and thank you, Chair. Thank you for inviting us along today. Very pleased to be able to sort of come and talk about the service that we provide for Gedling residents, particularly at this sort of time. I'm Donna Cumberledge. I'm the Chief Officer for Citizens Advice Nottingham District, and with me is Simon Mee, who is our General Advice Services Manager. So I'm going to talk a bit about us, our service, and Simon will talk. He's very hands-on in terms of the operational, the detail of things. My background is not advice. What the advisors do blows my mind, and Simon's background is advice. So any of the hard stuff, pass it to Simon, please. Okay. Oh, have I turned it off? Well done, me.
Yeah, that's just...
Oh, it's back? Okay. So, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Citizens Advice, but we are part of a national organisation, a national charity, which is its own independent charity. But we're part of a network across the country of England and Wales with 258 different, all independent charities working together, but as independent organisations. We give people the knowledge, confidence to find their way forward, whatever their problem is as well. It's free, confidential and completely impartial advice that we give, and we're a very well known and trusted organisation. Yes, okay. So for us specifically, Nottingham and District, so we're an independent charity. We were formed in 1988, so very well established. We deliver services across Gedling, Rushcliffe and Nottingham City. So our main office is on Maid Marian Way. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but we operate various outreach services across the area. We've got a general advice team, but we've also got specialist debt team, housing team, and also a help to claim team, as well as some smaller projects. And then we've got a team that's made up of around about 100 dedicated and incredibly passionate and knowledgeable staff and volunteers that make sure everything runs every day seamlessly for our clients. So when I've looked at this, we deliver, obviously we are funded through Gedling Borough Council to deliver some services, and it's really important that we also link back to what you're delivering to your residents as well. So for us, it's part of your Gedling plan, the cohesive, diverse and safe communities, promoting strong, resilient communities and reducing hardship and inequality. And that's particularly around reducing poverty and inequality, providing support at the moment, particularly to the most vulnerable, working with local organisations, so that's partnering with us to improve life chances for people, reducing levels of poverty, and helping to identify and deliver key interventions around interventions preventing homelessness and rough sleeping. Sorry. There it is. Okay, so in relation to the support that we get from Gedling Borough Council, we deliver an advice service through our advice line, which is a national phone line. We used to have one independently that was an 0115 number in Nottingham pre-COVID, but then when obviously lockdown came and everything switched to 100% remote phone-based, we went on to Citizens Advice National Helpline, so which is called Advice Line. What happens is it goes into a 0300 number, but it gets routed here to Nottingham, so people put in 0115, it picks up the area code and it gets routed to our advisors. So Gedling residents can access support from us through that. They can also access appointments face-to-face. We do a drop-in on a Thursday for vulnerable clients. So we're finding a lot of people can access support through phone, which works better for a lot of people. People that struggle to leave the house, people with children, even just getting children out of the house sometimes is a challenge, let alone sitting and having an hour, 2 hour appointments with children, keeping them entertained. So phone can work really, really well, but we do need to do face-to-face for some people. And then in Gedling, we've got different outreaches. So we deliver a service face-to-face in the council office in Arnold. We also deliver one in Netherfield. And we've also got a new one that we launched after COVID, all the lockdowns, at the core centre, which has been absolutely brilliant. It was something very new. The staff there were amazing getting it up and running. So we can have our advisors sat either at home or in our office, and they'll link in with clients having an appointment at the core centre. So it's a virtual appointment. It's been working really well. And we've also got another small project that we do with yourselves, Advice on Prescription. So I believe that started before I joined Citizens Advice a couple of years ago with John Shield, something he set up in terms of linking in clients, residents through their GP into our support. So that's a small project that we've got with you through the Arnold and Calverton practice. So what that looks like in terms of supporting your clients, or our clients, your residents. I think it's me. Okay, so I've done this based on the whole of last year. So obviously we're only sort of 3/4 of the way through this financial year. So I've done it for the whole of the calendar year from the 1st of Jan to the end of December last year. We supported 696 Gedling residents with 1,886 issues. Now, if you flick across to the right, there's an average of 2.7 issues that each person's coming to us. People are not coming just with one thing. They've got multiple issues that they're coming with. And we're not just picking up the phone once to them. We've got 2.6 contacts per client as well. So there might be some follow-up work going back to them or supporting them a bit further. So the outcomes that we got for them was over £232,000. So that's sort of money, one, that's going back into your local economy, back into supporting them, improving the lives of themselves and their families as well. Top issues, their benefits, tax credits, universal credit, housing, debt, and relationships and family are there as well. What's interesting is the clients sort of that we see through Gedling is over 55% of them have got long-term health conditions or disabled, which is quite a bit high because I think the ONS statistics for this whole area for our clients for 2011 was a lot lower. I've forgotten the figure now, I've written it down, but it's a lot lower, so it's quite high for this area. So other services. So while obviously there is the funded service that we do for Gedling Borough Council's residents, there's also other support that we provide across Gedling. So having this funding's enabled us to make partners with other areas. So we've got a social prescribing advice link worker service. That was a project we set up about 18 months ago with the Synergy Primary Care Network. That's been going really, really well, particularly supporting patients that come through those practices, again, long-term health conditions, disabled, and we're able to work with them over a really long period of time to resolve some of those issues they've got. We started last year a Trussell Trust food bank outreach at the Daybrook Centre in Arnold. That's been really great. That's 3 days a week, and we've got casework in there. Again, we're expecting a bit of a mix of some people perhaps being first-time users of the food bank that we can provide a bit of support with, but what we're finding is there's a lot of people that need that ongoing support, very vulnerable clients coming through. Early Intervention Worker is a project that we do across Nottinghamshire with the other 5 Citizens Advice offices. That's funded through the National Lottery, 3-year funding, which we're halfway through. So that funds us to deliver some early intervention work with Gedling and Rushcliffe residents that are almost at crisis point. So hopefully we can intervene early and help so they don't actually get to that full crisis point. So that's working well. And last year we were able to get some 1-year funding for through the COVID Social Recovery Fund to deliver some income maximisation work. So we've got a few months left on that as well. So just providing some support there. The box circle on the right. So we've also, within Citizens Advice Nottingham, got some other services that we deliver, which clients and residents in Gedling can be referred into. So we've got a specialist debt team, a housing team. So our housing team is, unfortunately, it's funded through Nottingham City Council, but we recognise that actually we've got a need. So some of the Gedling residents that we're seeing, they need specialist housing support and casework. So we're sort of trialling that at the moment, and I'm going to be going out looking in various places to try and find some funding to continue doing that work. You know, particularly the cases, the people that are coming through those healthcare settings through the GPs, there's that need to provide them with ongoing housing support. Trussell Trust, we've got a couple of other Trussell Trust outreach in the city. We've got a MS Society project as well, where we can support people diagnosed with MS. And last year, we was delivery partner now for Nottinghamshire County Council for the Autism Service for adults. So we're delivering that as a partner under Citizens Advice Mid-Mercia. What wraps around all of these things are some really key things about the partnership working. So we're a key part of working with Jane Ansell on the health and wellbeing, because we know things link into health and wellbeing. We partner with other organisations as far as we can, because we know that providing a holistic approach supports our clients much, much better. What we do, obviously, we provide volunteering opportunities, employment for obviously our staff. We support the local economy, not just with our own employment, but the benefits that we can gain for our residents. And research and campaigning is really, really important, particularly at the moment. We saw obviously the very tragic sort of case a few months ago where a young child died through sort of the conditions that they were living in housing. So we were able to set up on our computer system Casebook, which is where we record all our clients' data, like a tag, if you imagine a tick box, so that if anybody talks to us about housing conditions with damp, mould, condensation, we can kind of log it, and then we can start to track it and find emerging patterns and trends, and then start to put things in place where we can. So when you consider all the other services that are not just funded sort of through Gedling Borough Council, when you look at all of them, it has a much wider impact. So for all of the projects that we deliver for Gedling residents, we actually helped 920 with 3,480 issues. So you can see you're delivering some of those projects in much more complex cases, because the average number of issues that we see goes up to 3.78, and we have an average of 5.2 contacts per client as well. So it's very much ongoing support that we're seeing that people need. Top issues, about the same. The only difference is sort of the bottom, lower down issues is mixed between food banks, relationships and family relationships. And again, 59% of clients have long-term health conditions or disabled. Not sure if you're familiar with this. National Citizens Advice have access to a huge amount of data. If you think they're getting information from 258 offices across the country, and they can access that. And every month, for about the last 4 months, they've been delivering a cost of living webinar. There's one this week which anybody can register for, and it's really, really valuable. They have some different speakers each time, but they produce this cost of living dashboard, and you can hover over different areas. So you can hover over Gedling, and it will tell you for about the last 3 years what some of your key issues are. So unfortunately, the data I've got here is July to September, because the next webinar is in about 2 days' time. So in 2 days, I can update it for you. But for the July to September, your top housing issue in Gedling was threatened homelessness. The top debt issue was energy, which is a shift because it has been council tax arrears for quite some time. And the top benefit is the personal independence payment. And the people receiving crisis support is 7.44 people for every 10,000 people you've got, which has gone up from 2019. I think it was about 1.62 as well. So we've seen quite a jump over the last couple of years in people receiving support. Okay, I'm going to hand you over to Simon now, who's going to talk more operationally about what the challenges that we've been faced with as well.
Good evening. Unsurprisingly, we are seeing people with increasing bills and daily costs. Everyone's seeing them, but particularly people with low income or the disabled are feeling them more. So we're providing more support as a result of people coming to us with those. Sadly, some people are falling into debt as part of meeting the cost of living problems that we're seeing, and those debts are increasing. More people are coming to us who have poor health or disabilities than the average, what we'd expect to see compared to the profile of the population. And one thing in particular we're seeing is the complexity is rising massively. Whereas people would come to us with one issue and we'd find them a way forward with that issue, what we're increasingly seeing is that people come to us with one issue and we've got to do a number of things first before we can solve the presenting issue. And it's very important that for us that we actually provide a holistic approach to advising people, because it's very easy to stick a plaster over something, issue a food bank voucher, issue a fuel voucher, help them with what they've come to us today, but we're not actually helping them find a way forward. And I'm not saying that we're able to find a way forward for everyone. There are unfortunately people that we can't find a way forward, and I've never seen that in such scale as we're seeing this year. One of our biggest, or one of the biggest problems for people that come to us is around local housing allowance. Now, local housing allowance is a rate of that's set by central government that determines how much help people will get with their rent. So whether it be housing benefit or universal credit, the maximum amount of help they'll get with their rent is their local housing allowance, which is based on their household. So there is an example up there where one of your residents lives with a teenager. Because there's two people in the household, that will be a 2-bedroom local housing allowance rate. Monthly rent is actually £700, but the LHA rate for 2 bedrooms in Gedling is £550. So that's £150 that the person's got to find from the universal credit, which is their only other source of income. This particular client was incapable of work because of a long-term health condition, and their only means of income was universal credit. So for them, with a teenage son, they had got £700 to live off after rent, but then they had to meet the £150 of the rent from it. They've also got to meet food, energy, water, other things. We can help to a certain extent, but we can't. We've got access to social tariffs on water that we can apply for people. We've got food bank vouchers. We've got energy vouchers, but they're very, very short term. We can't find £150 a month where there isn't £150 a month. One of the things with rents is, particularly with mortgage costs rising, we're seeing more and more people coming to us because their landlord are raising the rent, and we give people advice about what process their landlord should follow and whether they can legally increase the rent. In this instance, the person had applied for a discretionary housing payment. Discretionary housing payments are actually managed by the housing benefit section within Gedling Borough Council. They're not designed to be a long-term payment. So generally, a lot of councils will only pay discretionary housing payments for up to 12 months and expect the person to try and find accommodation that is affordable for them. Unfortunately, that's getting less and less common, and it's not a Gedling problem, it's a problem across the country. local housing allowance was set in 2020 at the 30th percentile of rent, and it's been frozen since then. And last week, the Secretary of State announced that, that it would be frozen again this year. So we'll see what happens next year. We are seeing increases in evictions. Landlords are selling properties or issuing Section 21 notices. Section 21 notices are no-fault eviction, and realistically, there's hardly any defence against a Section 21 notice. Sometimes the landlord's paperwork's not up to date, and we can advise the client that what's wrong with it and how they can challenge it. But in the main, landlords do get it right, and people have got no real choice apart from sit it out until the bailiffs come or find other accommodation. But people are struggling to find accommodation, especially at local housing allowance rates, and also people are struggling with affordability checks, and credit references are coming, they get rejected for those reasons. We do see quite a few people who are facing homelessness, sadly, and we direct them to sources where they can find accommodation. But there's not much else we can do, especially when it's Section 21. If it's a case of rent arrears, sometimes we can negotiate with the landlord to actually arrange repayments and as an alternative to eviction, but sometimes there's not much we can do, unfortunately. Another problem we're having is this DWP decision making. There are errors in the system, even universal credit. A lot of decision makers aren't making the correct decisions the first time. Quite recently, we had someone who, fleeing domestic violence, they were EU national, had settled status, so they got indefinite leave to remain. They were entitled to benefit, but upon finding somewhere safe to live, they were declined universal credit because they didn't have a right to benefit according to the decision maker. It took one of our caseworkers, who's like a dog with a bone, fortunately, 4 days of concerted effort to get someone to reopen their universal credit claim. And then once it was reopened, they were able to get support and had a payment in the bank, an advance payment, so they could start their new life. We're also seeing delays in initial decisions, particularly for disability benefits. It is running about 13 weeks at the moment, and also for people who have limited capacity for work. Once a decision has been made, we do support people and advocate on behalf of people to challenge decisions that are incorrect, and there are delays in getting those decisions changed. About 5 or 6 years ago, the DWP introduced an extra step into the appeals process called mandatory reconsideration. That requires someone who receives a decision to ask the decision maker to look at it again before they can lodge an appeal. Now, prior to that, people could receive a decision and lodge an appeal. It's an extra step that 90% of decisions by decision makers at the mandatory reconsideration stage actually confirm the original decision. Once we get to appeal, particularly with personal independence payment, we lodge an appeal, and quite often the appeals writer, when they're instructed to justify the decision, overturn it and offer the client the decision that should have been made all along. And the appeals process just adds time, especially the mandatory consideration. That adds about 8 weeks into the process. I'm going to do a next slide, please. Sorry. Okay, so what difference do we make? We do offer tailored advice. Everyone is an individual that comes to us, whether they contact us by phone or face-to-face. We take a holistic approach to looking at all issues. A gentleman approached Gail, who comes downstairs on a Friday. He's got a massive gas bill, and he doesn't use his gas because he had a fire in a previous tenancy. Absolutely terrified of the stuff. And Gail arranged with his supplier for him to be, his gas supply to be capped, so he wasn't facing standing charges. But in the course of advice, she offered him a cheque of his benefits, which she said, go on then, why not? And she identified that he was being paid £70 a week short. And that wasn't just that week. He received £6,000 backdating. So again, we don't just deal with the presenting issue. We look at the person and we see what we can do for them. We help people by promoting their independence, building confidence and empowering clients. Wherever possible, rather than advocating people, we'll tell people what they can do and what stages they need to go through. And if they're able, they can do. They can always come back to us. We don't just take things over, wrap our arms around people and take them through the process. We support people with the support. We provide the support that people need and not just mother them. We do try wherever possible to empower them to take control of their lives. We're increasingly seeing that people are reporting better health and well-being outcomes as a result of advice. And quite often we can improve things for the whole household. Another client who came to us 2 or 3 months ago had got two sons with autism, and all of a sudden her universal credit dropped by 70% in September. And it turned out because her 19-year-old son in special school was now deemed to be an adult because it was the September following his 19th birthday. She'd approached the Department for Work and Pensions. They told her he's in education, he can't claim benefits because he's a student. The client came to us, is there anything you can do? And actually, we had to take over that one because the decision maker the DWP would not take a claim from that young man. And we got him universal credit. We helped her with her younger son get disability living allowance for a younger son, and we restored her income to where it was before it dropped. Again, we don't just look at the presenting issue, we try and help the whole situation. We don't just provide sticking plasters. Food bank use is a short-term approach. People get a bag, 3 or 4 days food. Fuel bank vouchers, we can get fuel bank vouchers from a number of sources, maybe £200 for someone who's in desperate need, but that's a one-off. We can't keep issuing those. So what we try and do is actually resolve the base issues that's causing that situation. And finally, we will be nowhere without our volunteers. Our volunteers are fantastic. They give up their time, they come and volunteer with us and help people to find a way forward, whatever their situation. Our volunteers last week, I was talking to them last week, and they were saying, it's the people. They do it for the people in the community, but also for the shared purpose that we give. And that's what people enjoy. Finally, case study. Young lady lives in Gedling, just down the road. Pre-pandemic, she was a single working mother with 3 school-age children. She had long COVID, which resulted in her needing to use a wheelchair out of doors and needed assistance with daily living tasks and care for her children. She claimed universal credit, but this was limited by the benefit cap, which prevents people receiving income above £23,000 from benefits. And our support, we had to, her blue badge, we had to appeal that. That was declined unlawfully. We removed her we got her benefit cap removed by claiming personal independence payment. We identified help with council tax, and we got her help at home from social services, both with caring for her children and also helping her with her personal care. Her income rose by £1,500 a month, which meant that she could support a family and have some life, because with just the benefit cap, she was surviving, she was existing, and she wasn't leaving. She actually got out a lot more, and she was very grateful for our intervention. So that's my lot. Okay.
Well, thank you very much to both of you for a very, very interesting talk, and I've certainly learned a lot about what Citizens Advice do and what they do for our residents. So, okay, we'll take questions now. First of all, Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Chair. Well, thank you, Simon and Donna, for that. I just find it heartbreaking, but it's great to know about the work that you do and the outcomes that you get for people. Some couple of questions. The local housing allowance, you mentioned that had been capped since, what, 2019, did you say?
Sorry. It was set at 30th percentile of rent in the local area in 2020.
Is that a government decision?
That is a government decision, yes.
And so do they make a decision for various areas in the country?
No, the local housing allowance, it's the decision is across the country. Right. The country is split up into a number of areas, broad rental market areas, BRMAs, and each of those are, when they're reset, they're all reset. But this part of Gedling is in Nottingham, and then you've got North Nottinghamshire for northern part of Gedling, moving into Ravenshead, Newstead areas, that part of the county.
Thank you. Did the government give any reason for delaying any increase in the cap?
The Secretary of State, and when the Secretary of State announced it, they said that people benefited from an increase in 2020.
Okay, thank you. And the second point I was going to ask about, that was the second point. Well, thank you for that. Could we have a copy of that, if you could send a copy to...
Copy of?
Copy of the presentation. Yes. If you could send it to Emma.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'll do is I'll leave it a couple of days and then I'll update it with that cost of living dashboard data, so you've got for Q3 December, so it's a bit more up to date. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Ellis, I saw next.
Yes, hello, and thank you very much for your presentations. You mentioned a webinar and some statistics. I wonder if you could repeat how we get access to that, please.
Yeah, remind me tomorrow. Yeah, it's I think it's booked through something like Eventbrite, so I'll try and remember Emma to send it to you tomorrow to be able to register. I'm sure it's the 19th, which is this week, isn't it?
Excellent.
So, but yeah, you literally just click on register your details and then it pops up. at the time.
That's
and you
great.
can watch it. So they've had different speakers at different times focusing on different topics. And then you get this dashboard, which is through Flourish, and you just click on it. And it's like a PowerPoint a bit that you just scroll through the pages. And in there's about 3 different maps of the country. And they're the ones that will show you the top benefits, debt issues and housing issues. And you can just hover over Gedling and see it. So yeah, I'll get that sent.
So my second question is, when you get into that map, how far can you drill down? Is it just at Gedling level?
Yeah.
You can't go any further in?
No, just at Gedling. So yeah, just at Gedling. I mean, we do have our own data, which in theory would make up the cost of living dashboard, because it's all, if you think our data feeds into national citizens advice, so we can drill down at a local level to things. So we can do it at ward level. We can get bits of information, can't we?
We can, yes.
So if you gave me an indication of what kind of information you want, we could potentially have a look a bit more at our local data as well.
Right, is that something I can perhaps contact you later on? That'd be brilliant, thank you.
Okay, has anybody else got any questions? Councillor Martin Smith.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Donna and Simon, for that presentation. It really was eye-opening. Donna, you mentioned about the support from Gedling Borough Council. Is that financial support?
It is, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So therefore, can I ask a question to the Chief Executive? Because I can see and hear what fantastic work you do, but do we as a council actually monitor and evaluate value for money, for instance?
Through you, Chair, yes, we do. We have a service level agreement set with the CAB, and Lance Dewby and his team look at that on a regular basis.
I assume we would, and I'm pleased to hear that everything's going well. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Paling.
Thank you, Chair. And again, thank you for your presentation. You talked about the rented sector. Are there special protections for mortgage holders who are going into arrears now? Because it seems to me that the cost of mortgages is shooting up, and many people will have bought on the expectation of the interest rate staying lower and are now getting into difficulties. Are they coming through to you?
I don't have specific information about that. We do see people with mortgage arrears, but I don't have information about that. I haven't prepared it.
That's fine. I just wondered if it was beginning to be apparent. Thank you.
One of the things we are starting to see, I spoke to my debt team probably towards the end of November, and said, what are we seeing? Are we getting a lot more debt appointments, debt clients? And they said, 2 independent people I spoke to, and they both said, we're starting to see more people saying, I'm not in debt today, but in 2 to 3 months I will be. And that's the bit, the more we can help people in those early stages, hopefully they're not coming to us in 2, 3, 4 months with debts, then a few months later with sort of proposed sort of homelessness and things. So it's that early intervention work really is key. I mean, we struggle to, we've got limited resources. Even if I had 100 volunteers knocking on our door saying, I want to help, we've got to have infrastructure, IT, all of those costs to support it. And, we try and adapt as much as we can to help as many people as we can. So we've trialled a few different things. I mean, attending some of the cost of living events that are happening across sort of all the different regions, we'll try and get to those where we can. Because there are a lot of people that can self-help. So, they might just need us to point them in the right direction. We've got the DWP funds the help to claim line that we operate part of that. People can ring that and see whether there's anything that they're available to get support on there. Thank you. Working in different areas, can we do more early intervention stage? We're looking at possible opportunities wherever we can to try and do more, reach as many people in that early stage. So,
Oh, there we go. Has anybody else got any questions? Councillor Elwood.
Thank you, and thank you for the work that yourselves and your volunteers do in the borough.
I probably should know this, but I'm going to have to ask. Presumably, for face-to-face contacts at the Civic Centre, people need to make an appointment, do they, to attend?
Yes, people can come in and make the appointment within the office, or we can make appointments remotely if people contact us by telephone, and it's judged to be necessary for them to actually see someone face to face. Yes.
Okay. The other question I have, you mentioned you have your main office in the city centre. Does it matter if Gedling residents go to that office, or do they have to come here to the Civic Centre?
No, anyone can walk through the door at Nottingham. Occasionally we see people that are outside the geographical area that we see, and we won't turn people away if they've got a problem that we can solve.
Yes, yeah.
No, so yes. Short answer is they can appear at our office.
The reason I mention it is because at certain parts of the borough, it's one bus journey into the city centre rather than two bus journeys to get to the to the city centre rather than two bus journeys to Arnold. So that's why I asked that question. But thank you.
Thank you. Has anyone else got any other questions? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you. Yes, I've just, in terms of your outreach, I know that in Netherfield you're at the St George's Centre. Do you have the capacity to see everybody who comes there, or do you have to, because I know you're there for a specific time, aren't you?
Yes, we see 4 people at St George's, 4 people at these offices. We can't meet demand all of the time. We would like to expand our services, but we lost approximately 50% of our volunteers during the pandemic. Most of them, majority of them resigned. Whilst we have prior to the pandemic, we did used to have 2 advisors, and that upped the capacity by 2 at Netherfield. But at the moment it's 4 per day, and we don't see everyone that wants to approach us, unfortunately.
Thank you. But you do provide them with other routes?
Yes, yes. They are provided with our telephone number. They can contact the advice line. The advice line itself, it just people that are routed to us, if we're over capacity, it will send people to other officers within the Citizens Advice Network, and they will be advised if they need local assistance, they will get referred back to us through the Citizens Advice Network. So hopefully the telephone advisor will help them, but if the person does need local assistance, it will get referred back to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question? I've actually got something I'd like to ask that I should probably know the answer to as well. But so you're talking about the private rented sector and the local housing benefit cap thing. So people who are in social housing, does that apply, or the rent's not high enough?
No, it's all about size-related criteria. So in the social rented sector, then people's house will be, they'll have restrictions on the rent if they've got 1 bedroom more than what the household need using a particular formula. If they've got 2 bedrooms more than what they require, or 2 or more bedrooms more, it's 25%, 1 or more, 1 bedroom too many, then they get a 14% restriction.
Okay, so say they needed 2 bedrooms and they've got 2 bedrooms, they'd be covered, would be fine.
Yes, if the
Yeah.
yes, the that restriction in the social rented sector doesn't apply to pensioners. It only applies to people of or families where one adult is at working age. So someone needs 2 bedrooms, they live in a 3-bedroom accommodation, they'll have 14% reduction in the help in the rent. If someone's in a 3-bedroom accommodation and they need 1 bedroom, then they'll have a 25% cut in the help with the rent.
Yeah, I understand, but just to say as well, I do appreciate that it's hard in the social rented sector to move people around as well, so they've got the right number of rooms, if you see what I mean as well. So I guess that's an added issue in that area. Okay, thanks very much. Has anybody got any more questions? It's just been really, really interesting, and I'll be publicising your work very much. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for coming this evening.
I'd like to thank you for inviting us. Thank you.
No, it's been great, thank you. Emma? Yes, so we're just noting that members have asked questions and make comments on the information provided, which I think we've done very well.
Can we thank them formally for their attendance?
Yes, definitely. We'll go in the minutes, won't it? We formally thank Donna and Simon for their time and their report. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda. I know it's Mike Hill, but I'm just coming to what it is. Number 5, the Gedling Plan Q2 report, and Mike Hill, the CEO, is going to give the report for us. Off you go.
Thank you, Chair. Just watching my teeth chatter, that's all. It's a bit cold in here, isn't it? So it just must be me then. So anyway, this report sets out the performance data for the council at the end of Q2, which takes us up to the end of September last year. So it's slightly out of date now. We are just preparing the Q3 one, which will go to Cabinet later this month. So bearing in mind this is Q2, and it's 4 months past since then. So starting with actions, there are 90 actions currently active in the multi-year Gedling plan, which does end in 2 months' time, in March 2023. So at the end of Q2, we had completed 8 of those 90 actions, with the remaining 82 well in progress. No problems with delivery were anticipated at that time, and indeed at Q3, hopefully you'll see they've moved on significantly. In terms of performance indicators, there are 32 listed and what we monitor against. 19 of those were on target, 2 were slightly below, and 5 did miss the target. And the other 6 were for data tracking purposes only. So in the report, in the table in paragraph 2.4, it does show examples of particularly positive performance, and just picking on 3 of those in particular. So the number of long-term empty homes returned to use, and by long-term empty here we define it as over 6 months empty, where we have achieved a figure of 17 returned to use against a target of 10. So that's very positive, and it meets our objectives of not having homes sat empty, particularly when we've seen the information we've just heard from the CAB as well. So the second one, percentage of planning applications processed, and this is in all 3 categories of major, minor and other. They all exceeded their respective targets in that quarter. And again, the number of visits to leisure centres, extremely difficult, cost of living, but we are still seeing the numbers exceeding our target, and in this particular quarter, almost 25% more visitors than we expected. So that was really good news. And of course, that can only promote healthy living as well, which is good. Members will also remember that the number of net additional homes provided, it did fall short of the target last year, and it is a very fluid movement, but it's good to see that this has now turned around, and in both Q1 and in Q2, we have exceeded the target so far this year. So the reasons for the 5 indicators that have missed the target are set out in paragraph 2.5 of the report. The first one very much echoes what Simon's just said around DWP errors. So in terms of processing housing benefit change of circumstances, we saw huge levels of referrals from the DWP, particularly in Q1 and a lot in Q2 as well. We have now processed these. We've moved to a bulk processing methodology because to do it on an individual basis wouldn't be timely for our benefit claimants and the people who need it. So we've changed our approach to that, and you'll see that again in Q3 where that is improving. Working days lost to sickness remains quite high, but again the trend is falling. And that's because we calculate them on a rolling 12-month average. So again in Q2 we were still seeing the after effects of COVID-related sickness. Again, referring to leisure, the current number of leisure DNA members did slightly miss the target. Again, cost of living is starting to bite there. So I suppose that contradicts what I've just said about the number of people coming in. So I think it's a movement away from, a periodic monthly direct debit to perhaps people coming more on an ad hoc basis, when they can afford to come. So, there is a fall in DNA membership. We did increase the prices last year. What that also does is wake what we call sleeping members. So, I haven't been to the gym for months, but I still pay my monthly direct debit. So there's people like me that, once you notify people of an increase, it wakes you up and makes you want to cancel. So again, there is that issue there. Recycling of household waste is always an issue for every council. And again, we always continue to focus our attention on working both with the Veolia recycling and the county council, push out a lot of recycling messages there as well. We are still hampered, of course, by the complex restrictions on what we can and can't recycle, and that's in line with the county council's contract, unfortunately. So we are held to what can be processed in that manner. And finally, percentage of invoices paid within 30 days did fall short in this quarter, but again, it's starting to improve in Q3. So in terms of achievements, they're covered in a separate appendix, but there's some highlighted in paragraph 2.7. So the shared prosperity bid was submitted. We were awaiting a decision when this report was complete, but we got approval last week. So it's, full scheme ahead now. We can start working on that, working with our community and start spending that over the next year and a quarter, 2 years and a quarter. The leader set up a new council cabinet role. So Councillor Catherine Fox has now got a new portfolio to support refugees, women and the disabled. Good news on the green flags. We've now got a 5th green flag award, and that was given to Breck Hill Park following its refurbishment of the play area. The Gedling Green Homes retrofit scheme. So this is where the government, we have to apply for it and bid for it, but we were successful in getting money to do retrofit for energy efficiency in some of the private sector homes, and we were able to install energy efficiency measures to 51 homes in Netherfield. As part of our improvements to leisure, we have rolled out a new system, a new leisure management system, which has improved customer functionality and access to our services, meaning residents don't have to queue at the desk, they can go into leisure centres automatically, and that will only improve as that gets embedded and moves forward. Continuation of the payment to residents under the energy bills rebate scheme. I think we've done incredibly well. We're probably one of the leaders in the country at this point in time, where we'd paid out 99.4% of our entitlement to residents, so much more than any of our nearest neighbours. So, we did really well with that. The Swim England Teaching Education Awards, last year we were shortlisted for Swim School of the Year, and my apologies, I did intend to check up whether we'd got that award or not, but I don't know at this point in time, so I'll defer that. But even so, whether we were or not, it's a real achievement to get shortlisted for that. And again, linking into what Simon said, temporary accommodation, we secured a further 2 additional leased properties in that quarter to support homeless families. Because of the shortfalls in the local housing allowance, we won't, or we try not to put people who will fail, and let's face it, people will fail in private sector accommodation because they can't continually afford that £150 in that example. So we try our best alongside CAB to keep it sustainable. But if we know it won't happen in the longer term, then we're not going to do that to people. We're going to try and find more suitable accommodation. So, you know, we are increasing our number of stock. We've purchased 8 and we're trying to lease 8 as well. So that increases our temporary accommodation offer. It's not ideal, but because we don't have housing stock, that's the, you know, sort of the approach we are taking. So I'll leave it there, Chair, and happy to answer any questions.
Yep, I think Councillor Sam Smith's got a question.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Mike, for that detail. Just on temporary accommodation, the report on page 16 says that we're on target because the average length spent is 21 weeks rather than 22 weeks. That is still 5 months, and that's a long time for a family, particularly large families, which I know they are, to spend in B&B. And I think the cost every year on the budget is over £200,000 of the taxpayers of Gedling spend on that temporary accommodation. And I make this point every time you bring this report to committee, because we are buying and building 2 to 3 bedroom properties, but that's not where the demand is. The demand is in 4 to 5 bedroom properties, and that's why we're spending 200 grand on temporary accommodation. So where are we at with actually addressing the demand rather than 2 to 3 bedroom properties? And the council's received over 500, or been assured of over £500,000 of government funding to help tackle temporary accommodation and homelessness. So will some of that money that you've received be spent on that point? That's my question. And just a good thing, because I think you're underselling yourself on page 18, you've received £2.866 million of government funding for the shared prosperity, not 2.6 million. So you've undersold yourself on the report there.
Do you want to come back, Mike, on that?
Yeah, certainly can, yeah. I'll take your word for it on the SPF. I haven't got those figures to hand, so you know, I won't challenge that, but thank you for that. In terms of homelessness, we've just had the allocation, which is quite right. I think it's 500,000-ish over 2 years. And we've just got something like 40,000 extra for the current year as well. You know, we do traditionally spend that amount of money. Predominantly at the moment, it is on single people. Yes, we do have some large families still, but I think there's only a handful, probably 3 or 4 at the moment. And the problem is there are no huge houses in the borough. If you can remember last time when Jigsaw came, I think properties of more than 3 bedrooms, there was about 50, I think, in their stock. So you can see there's a massive demand for them. You know, we do work with people like Jigsaw who are willing sometimes to merge 2 houses into one, but that takes a huge amount of money and resources to try and do that. So we try and work together with all our partners to try and address that. But absolutely right, it is difficult. We've got a lot of new development going on in the borough, so we are talking, and indeed we have talked to the developers, and some of them are building 4 or 5 bedroom properties to help us in this regard. So, you know, that again, that helps us where we have a great working relationship with our housing developers in the borough. So, yes, that's long term. You know, it may be another year before we start seeing some of those, but we are working on that and, you know, trying to get there. Bed and breakfast is not where we want to be. Absolutely, it's a government recommendation that you shouldn't be in bed and breakfast for more than 6 months, which is far, far too long. Absolutely get that. But, you know, we don't have any stock. The private sector has stock, but people can't afford to live in them. And the you know, housing providers, social housing, in huge demand. And, you know, absolute frustration from my housing needs team. You know, we do have people, we have referrals, as we've talked about today, and we wish we had a magic wand, but we don't. So bed and breakfast is the only answer, which is unfortunate, which is why, again, the council's going down this route of trying to, you know, it costs 150, 160,000 to buy one property, so it's not a short-term thing, and it is costly, but in the long run, it will save us in bed and breakfast. As I say, going back to where I started, at the moment, demand is for 1 bed accommodation. I'm a bit reluctant to purchase 1 bed properties, because next year the average demand might be for 2-bed people, and therefore we've got loads of accommodation sat empty, so I don't want to do that either. So we're trying to see into the future as well as do what we can do at the moment locally. So it's a moving target, but that's sort of the work we're trying to do. What I have asked the housing needs team, especially after tonight's presentation as well, once we get the election out of the way and we get new members, I would really like members to have a briefing on homelessness and housing needs, because we do get questions from a lot of members that say, you know, you're rubbish, you know, your team doesn't allocate Mrs. Jones a house, why not? And I think the facts would be quite good about our processes and the challenges we face. So, you know, if we can do that and not teach members, but certainly advise them on our processes, I think we help you to help your residents and also to take the pressure off us as well by explaining the realism and the facts that, you know, we do face as a council. So, long-winded answer, but thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mike. Yes, there are a lot of good things in here, there's no doubt about it. I've just got one or two comments. The residual household waste on the top of page 18, where it mentions that the lead waste authority doesn't include certain plastic films, fruit cartons and foils. In terms of plastic film, I'm not sure whether people know that the co-op provides a bin, where it certainly does in Netherfield, where you can take your plastic film. And I sometimes have to make 2 trips a week. This fruit that comes in soft plastic, bread bags, you know, and other foods that sometimes they've got a hard plastic base, cheeses, for instance, and a film on top. And, you know, I spend a lot of time in washing them and taking them to the co-op. But it'd be good if that could be, because we've got more than one co-op in Gedling, it would be good if we could have a look at some of the supermarkets. I know that, I think one of them has somewhere where you can put carrier bags, for instance. Those of people who forget to take their linen bag and end up with having to pay for one. The other points I was going to refer to, on page 31 in the appendix, find it again. It's not on page 31, I lied. There is, oh God, what have I done with it? There is something which refers to 21-22, when I think it should be referring to 23-24.
Yeah. I noticed that as well, but I can't remember where it is either.
Well, it's not,
Let me try and remember.
It will come to me. And on page 35, there is an error. Good grief, it's not page 35 either. What's the matter with me? It's on page 31, the second paragraph, Colic Rectory Recreation Ground. It says, we have been successful in our funding application to FCC Communities for £100,000 for the refurbishment of Colic Rectory Recreation Ground. Would that we did. It's Colic Rectory Recreation Ground Children's Play Area. It's not the ground itself. So hopefully I might come back.
Okay. Thanks, Meredith. We'll come back if you can find it in a minute. Councillor Rachel Ellis got a question.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you and our staff for their achievements so far and continuing ambition in the face of some adversity, may I say. I'm just asking for a little additional information here, which you might not have to hand, and that's fine. I'm looking at page 24 of the Gedling Plan Achievements Report, which is the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Training Programme. So 2 things. First of all, is it possible for us to actually access that online programme? And secondly, can I just inquire, it's a bespoke training course. Who's providing it?
I can answer one of those questions, which was, yes, it's for everyone, and Councillor McCrossan and Fox are pushing it out, with officers' support. So probably Emma doesn't know, but I thought it was on the internet already, but I might be wrong, but it's certainly for everyone to do, and we would encourage everyone to take it as well, because it's really good. It's not something we've written ourselves. It is purchased from a national provider, but I couldn't tell you the name of that provider at the moment. But by all means, through Emma, we can send that out to all members again and make sure it's there, the offer's there, and we'd very much like everyone to do it. So, yes.
Will we need to come into the Civic Centre to access it?
It's online, so you should be able to do it from, hopefully, on your iPad.
Thanks very much. Councillor Paling.
Just coming in on that, when the new administration comes in, we'll be making sure that new councillors are aware of these opportunities as induction training, but something that they have to do in addition to their basic induction.
Can I just say Emma's been working very hard on a training programme, and if I was a new member, I'd be facing it with dread, because there's about 30 training sessions to be held. So.
Thanks very much. Has anybody else got any more questions for Mike at this time? Okay, and thanks for answering the question during the citizens' advice bit as well. So thanks very much for that. Right, so let me find the recommendation. Just a minute. It's the progress of the improvement actions and performance indicators are noted. So duly noted. Thank you very much. Yes. Okay, so now we're moving on to item 6, which is the review of the implementation of the Domestic Abuse Working Group recommendations. That's a very long title. This was a working group that happened a little while ago. The recommendations went to Cabinet, and were accepted, partially accepted, etc. And now it's come time to review what's actually happened since then. So I'm going to hand over to Emma to go through this.
Thank you. So unfortunately, we couldn't have anybody that was involved in the group here today. And I personally haven't got any updates, but what I wanted to do was to see if you have any questions for me to take back. I also wanted to confirm that Councillor Fox, who is the new portfolio holder, who's sort of responsible for this area, will be coming to the next committee and giving us an update on her whole portfolio, which includes this area. So she will be able to answer any questions that you have then. But I'm also very happy to take any feedback or comments on anything that you'd like to know sooner. So that's what I'm going to say for now.
Councillor Lawrence.
The date's mixed up. On page 35, it says date review completed 2021. Is that correct? Yeah. So what?
Yeah, I think that was correct.
Okay. Okay, so this is just an update, is it?
That's right, yeah. Have you got any questions at this point, or we'll have some for...
Well, the early response was received by the ONS committee on the 6th of September 2021, it says. Sorry?
So any review that happens is supposed to come back to committee within 6 to 12 months. So because the programme that we've sort of amended as we go along has sort of been rolling across. Also, I was trying to get the information from the people. So that's the reason.
So there's no real progress on it that we've been told?
No, so in the report there is the cabinet response that you got already, and the addition to this report is called implementation comment. So this comment was taken from Councillor David Ellis and Nikki Pacal, who is the DV officer within the council. So that gives the update on what's happening regarding each recommendation. And just to confirm, Councillor Fox will be bringing this up as part of her portfolio holder update in March.
Sorry, it's a long time since I've been on this committee and seen a report on a working party.
Okay, thanks very much. So we're happy with that for the time being, and we'll bring it up next time. Okay, now we're going to move on to the scrutiny work programme, which is on the... Oh, hang on a minute. The recommendation. No, we're going back to the recommendation. Just a minute. No,
I'm sorry, Chair. I've just found my query. I marked it, but I couldn't find it. It was about sanctuary, and are we still able to support sanctuary referrals? Because this was a long time ago that we made that comment, and I know we received some extra funding, but is it continuing?
I personally don't know the answer, but I'm very happy to ask Nikki and then get back to you via email.
Yeah, I think that's... I'm not aware it's continuing past March, but I may be totally wrong. So it's best if we get the detail from Nikki Pacal.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take that forward for another time. Yeah. Okay, so the recommendation, we note the report, make comment on the information provided as necessary. So duly noted. And further comments to come next time, potentially. Okay, now we're going to move on to the scrutiny work programme. You've got in your papers the proposed things for the forthcoming meetings. If Nikki, sorry, Nikki, you're Emma, if you want to talk about this.
Thanks, Chair. So not much to update. I did want to just confirm about the risk scorecard and the quarterly performance, why we get it like a few months later. The reason is the audit is tomorrow, so we could have got it if we swapped days, but audit needs to have the report first, which is why it didn't come to us, so apologies. And the same with the performance, it's just a few days too early for this committee. In terms of the future programme, we're going to speak about it in the any other business section, but it's just to get a steer that you're happy with what's to come in the next meeting. And if there was any other suggested partners you'd like to review, because We Are Here that are able to do it in March. But thinking ahead for the next programme, just sort of getting some comments on what members would like to see. Please.
Rachel Ellis.
Yes, I'm just looking at the March programme. It seems very top-heavy.
So we may as well discuss it now. We can. It is sort of incorporated into this option. So basically, the next meeting is scheduled for the 25th of April, but that's during the pre-election period. So due to the role of this committee, I am recommending that it does not happen on that day, as will be in pre-election period. So what I asked the chair to discuss with you that we can discuss now is what you want to do regarding that, whether you cancel that meeting and have a very top-heavy meeting like it is on this sheet, or whether we do 2 meetings quite close together and spread it out a little bit. That was the only other business item. So I'd be very happy and keen to hear your thoughts on that.
Has anybody got any comments on that? Rachel?
Yes, my view is if we're going to do justice to all these very important topics, we perhaps need 2 meetings.
Yeah, I think I'm tending to agree on that. So effectively, we're moving the April meeting forward, would be my suggestion. I'm seeing quite a lot of nods around the room here.
So how about I email you with my suggestions, and then you guys can let me know, and we'll do the best approach. Would that be okay? And then we'll split this very big programme in half, and then we can do everyone justice, like you said, Councillor Ellis. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I presume we would take the risk scorecard and the performance, then we'd take both of those in March, as soon as we can, really. Just with the other bits, we're spreading out a little bit.
I'd suggest probably doing one portfolio per session so that it's not loads of presentations and you're not presentation to death.
Yeah.
The same with the sewage working group recommendations. They're going to be quite meaty and quite informative. As you all know from attending the committee, there's a lot to talk about, so I'll split them then.
Can I suggest that if we are here, have already been invited, we don't mess them about?
Yeah, I'll need to speak to them I think I said around March because I knew this was going to come up, so I'll speak to them tomorrow and get their availability as well and sort of try and work around you all. But I'll be in touch within the next few days.
Great.
Thank you.
Sam, did you have a question, Sam Smith?
Yeah, no, just a suggestion which I think was mentioned before, but if Cabinet members are told to share their presentation in advance, we can just get straight to the questions because that does go on for hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sort of providing a bit more of a structure of what they need to provide for the next few meetings, just to sort of give them a steer, because we're aware that the last few have been either not minimal or massive. There's been no sort of in between. So I'm providing a bit of a template to our portfolio holders to assist them and their departments to give a concise and helpful presentation. So yeah, I note that and agree.
Okay, Councillor Elwood.
Thanks, Chair. Appreciate I'm a substitute rather than a standing member at the committee, so this is kind of a question that Councillor Duncan wanted me to ask. Looking at the minutes from the November meeting, the review of the sewerage working group was supposed to happen tonight, but it looks like it slipped again into March. Is there any particular reason why we weren't able to discuss that at tonight's meeting?
Basically offers a time, and like I spoke to Councillor Clooney and I think Councillor Ellis maybe, when we wanted to make sure that the report was thorough, so very thorough, we're giving the best recommendations we can based on the advice. Also, we were still waiting on some information from some of the partners that were coming through to inform our recommendations, so I emailed members to confirm that it will be slipped. I could have done a rush report, but I'm not a fan of that. I want our work that was really helpful and plenty to make a report as good as it can be. So a mixture of officer time, a lack of response from partners, and the time for members to have an input which they really wanted. So that's the reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Any more questions at this point? So we're going to note the work of the current programme and identify further areas for examination 23-24. I think you think of people for next time. I know it's all a bit awkward because nobody knows who's going to be here, so we'll. Yeah, we know that, Councillor Lawrence.
So prisoners have calendars where they cross off the days. I've got just under 4 months, and then I'm free.
Okay, so I think that's done the scrutiny work programme, and it's done any other matters that I felt was urgent because that was about the meeting. So Emma's going to send around some dates that work for her and her team for that meeting, which will no longer be at the end of April, but it will be somewhere quite close to the March meeting that's already there. So okay, so Emma will fit it in, I'm sure. Okay, so thank you very much for all attending the meeting tonight, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Good night.